You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
There's nothing more predictable in life than the unexpected. Lightning will always strike. Hail will fall on roofs. Fortunately, there's AAA. AAA has been helping members stay prepared for over 100 years. So when unusual storms, fallen debris, or sudden leaks happen, you'll be covered. Check, check, and check. Get the home and auto insurance you need by talking with a AAA insurance agent today. Visit AAA.com/insurance or stop by your local AAA store.
Today, this breakfast isn't just breakfast. It might be the first McDonald's breakfast you're having at McDonald's again. This lunch might be a weekly tradition you hadn't had in weeks. And this dinner might be the first one you bought for not just you in a while. Whatever this order is for you, McDonald's will be here to take it.
Get more of the chicken you love with a delicious McChicken sandwich for $1. And for an extra buck, add a refreshing Dr. Pepper. Dining rooms are starting to reopen in certain communities at participating McDonald's. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is, if getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now, 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
Ready to stand out, Army ROTC prepares you not only as a college student, but as a strong leader, allowing you to earn the rank of second lieutenant. You will be eligible for full tuition merit-based scholarships and develop leadership skills essential for your future. Start strong and enhance your college experience. Visit your campus Army ROTC representative today. To find out how you can earn up to a full tuition scholarship, visit goarmy.com/podcast to locate your closest ROTC program today. Army officers inspire, strengthen others. Paid for by the United States Army.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of He Said, She Said. I am your hostess, Aggie, and with me is our beloved producer, Rick. How are you doing this evening?
I finally got some sleep, so that's good. So I'm doing better. Just put out a Twitchy piece dragging Biden yesterday. I got to drag Joy Reid. It's been a good week.
That you've been dragging people really, really well. I've been enjoying all the Twitchy pieces this week.
Well, so after the show, I will be attempting to drag Lizzo, but I will likely need a team for that. So,
Boy, I wasn't going to say it. I was not going to say it. I'm trying to be good. It's Good Friday.
I'm taking the heat for you, Aggie. That's why I said it.
Okay, thank you for saying it instead of me. I don't have to do penance anytime soon.
See, I don't have to tell my secrets to a priest. I just go straight to the guy, so it's all good. And he already knows what I said. So
we Catholics, I swear to God, forgive me, it's Good Friday. I shouldn't say that, but most Christians, direct line. Y'all have a direct line. Catholics, no. We have to break it down by chore. Okay, God's a little busy, so hey, pick the archangel. He's usually pretty cool. He's by himself. He's not doing much of anything right now. Or you know what? Pick any of the saints. Depending on what the chore is, pick that saint. Okay? Mary's always good. Mary's always good for a prayer. She loves to hear it. But Jesus is a little busy right now, so I always crack up about that.
it's kind of like, God's on a party line and he can't hear you, so pray to this guy instead. I'm like, what? But yeah, no. So being a history buff, one of the things that I did, because the Reformation movement between Catholics and Protestants and King James and everything else actually really intrigued me because I didn't really understand it at first. And then I started digging into why the Reformation really started happening. In England, it happened because in England it happened the same reason there was a Protestant Reformation once it happened in England, because the king figured out that the church was making bank, and the king wanted to make the bank instead, so he put out his own Bible. But one of the most disturbing things for me in history was realizing that part of the reason, and I hope that has changed, and I'm not trying to down anybody's faith or anything else, but part of the reason why it took them forever to stop doing Latin masses and everything else was because the people couldn't understand them, so they had to go to the priest to interpret everything. And one of the scariest things for me about the middle-aged Catholic Church, the Middle Ages Catholic Church, not the middle-aged, was discovering that penance was purchased.
Yes, that is one of the ugly parts of Catholicism, the indulgences, which thankfully the Vatican did away with, but it took them a long time because they still wanted to make bank.
Of course, it took them a long time. They have their own city-state. Mm-hmm. They wanted to get that set up first. They're like, okay, yeah, we can stop that now.
Yeah. So, I'm Catholic. I'll be Catholic till the day I die or whatever. But I do point out some of the foibles in my church and some of the things in the past that the church has done, and some of it is downright ridiculous, and some of it is just like, who are you trying to kid? Like at Würzburg, there's this beautiful. This is in Germany. There's a beautiful. Well, the castles are a dime a dozen in Germany, true, but in this particular town, Würzburg, there is a castle called Marienburg. And that's where the prince bishops lived. Okay. And so in order, the townsfolk started getting mad, according to my friend who was relating the history as best as she could. The townfolk got mad because the princes lived high above the city, so they were away from the stench, they were away from the noise, and all that. And they lived pretty high and mighty. And, the townspeople at the Dom, which is the cathedral, they one day they kind of rose up in the cathedral during service and demanded to know why it was that the prince bishops lived up there when they espoused being part of the people. So the prince bishops decided to build a castle in town so that they could be with the people, be one of the people. And it's one of the most beautiful residences. It's actually called The Residence. And it's absolutely stunning. And they still make wine to this day because that's how the prince bishops actually funded a lot of the castle stuff and a lot of the church stuff. So, but I mean, it always cracks me up. So what you're telling me is they left that castle and then built this castle just to be part of the people.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, I mean, to me, it reminds me of Joe Biden still trying to pretend he's part of the people while he's at a $500,000 a plate fundraiser. But anyway, we don't talk politics much on the show, so let's move on to the actual topic. Nope. So, have anybody seen the TikTok video? And honestly, there's more than one, but I know the one you're talking about. There's
a few out there. Yeah,
there's like college students that have spent, supposed to have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars going to college, and they can only get jobs in like fast food joints and customer service jobs and everything else, and they ain't happy about it.
Apparently there was this young woman. She took to TikTok and she's holding up her 2 degrees and her certificate and talking about how it means something. That admittedly she did not get her master's, but she has 2 degrees and a certificate. And she worked really, really hard. And of course, I tried freezing it so I could read what the degrees were in.
Underwater basket weaving.
I could not. I couldn't decipher what it said. But she was complaining that she put out her resume out there and everything, and she only heard back from one guy who wanted to hire her to work in customer service, basically an entry-level job. And she was very scathing about it and called him out by name, Brad.
Not our Brad, right?
Not our Brad. No, not our Brad. And talked about, she is just in a very condescending manner talking about how she worked hard for this degree, and she is not, she didn't get these degrees to be answering phones for anybody, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And all I could think about was my degree. When I graduated, everybody knows I have a completely useless degree. But when I graduated, I studied something I really enjoyed with the understanding that I was never going to work in that field unless I just devoted volunteer hours to it, which I have.
Well, hang on. As far as you having a completely worthless degree, Raiders of the Lost Ark would have a word.
Don't get me started with that movie. Anyway, it's a love-hate relationship with me. But the thing was, I knew I was not going to get a job in this. I was hoping for an entry-level job anywhere, and I got one, and I was happy, and I worked my way up, and it was great. And I actually used my background, what I learned in school, to get better at my job. And it was amazing to me that this woman had so much pride to actually deride the only person that offered her a job. And it reminds me of a story. I remember she worked for the Today Show. Roberts, I think her name was.
You talking about Cokie?
No, not Cokie. The pretty black lady who was a basketball player.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about, but I can't think of her first name.
It escapes me right now. But she was giving a speech, and she graduated in communications and everything, and she she was desperate to land an anchor job somewhere and everything. The only place that would actually hire her was a country music station out in Tennessee. And, she made fun of that. And I'm like, they were the only ones willing to give you a job, and you're making fun of that? The fact that that you were going to be in a country music station in the heart of a red state, and you're making fun of that. Because to her, it was below her, because she had a degree in communications or journalism or whatever it was that she had, and she wanted to be an anchor, without the understanding that you have to pay your dues before you sit in that chair. Yeah, and eventually she did. She did take the job. She did, but I guess, eventually she understood this is just a stepping stone. And kids nowadays don't see that they have to take those stepping stones before they start, solidifying their career in whatever field they choose to pursue. This girl was a prime example. She had her 2 degrees and her certificate. Let's not forget the certificate. And she was demanding a job commensurate with those degrees without having to work for it.
Yeah, the degree teaches you some of the things that you need to know in your chosen field, but there's nothing that is ever going to beat experience. And this is something that I have tried to explain to everyone. You have to understand this is coming from somebody who has now officially owned one. So that one's gone. But then I have the station, the production house, that one. So 4 separate business entities that I am still putting together with baling wire, shoestring, and duct tape. But as somebody who has owned businesses, as somebody who's been bosses within other people's businesses, as somebody who's done the entry-level work of cleaning toilets, because a job is a job is a job is a job, and you take the job and you do it to the best of your ability, and you use it to learn something. But the thing that I seem to can't make anybody understand in this day and age is there is not a time in your life, in the world of business, where customer service skills are not going to come in handy. I ran a $300,000 a year security company, which isn't very big, but still was one of the biggest ones in my area in our heyday. And I still had people that I had to answer to. They were my clients. I was the boss at my job, but I still had bosses. And whether you like it or not, your bosses can in some cases be your customers. And if you don't learn customer service skills, you're never going to go anywhere anyway. Now, I will also say, as somebody that has spent a lot of time in customer service, this the customer is always right bullshit, I would like to find that person and set them on fire. Then put them out and do it again. Because that is just wrong on so many levels. But that again is part of where this kid's mentality came from. She was a customer of that university, and she expected that when she got done with those degrees, she was going to be able to walk out, throw a rock, and hit a $1.5 million a year job. That's what she thought.
I think also that, I don't know, when you went to college was obviously later than when I went to college.
No, I wasn't that far behind you. The first time I went from like 93 to 94. But yeah, I left halfway through the first time.
But you remember there was always a job recruiting center or some kind of job thing going every semester for every, and they encouraged us to start going our sophomore year. I remember this at A&M. They encouraged you to go your sophomore year, to start putting feelers out, to start networking to see what was out there. Who was recruiting? What were the types of jobs that were recruiting in that year? If you needed to notice the trends that were going on, and then you're at the beginning of your senior year, you start. You have filtered out by then you filtered out where you want to start concentrating your job searches and all that stuff, and you go to these job things, job fairs and whatever, and you start putting out your name and everything. One of my girlfriends was graduating in, I want to say microbiology or something. She ended up working not at a lab, but lab adjacent, as they are fond of saying today. So instead of working in the lab, she was actually doing filing the paperwork, filing all the incoming paper traffic. This was before email. So, but she was there. She was in. So for her, that was like, I got a job and I'm very excited. She was like beyond. And now, of course, she freaking owns like 3 labs, I think, in Nebraska somewhere. So, but she understood that, yes, I'm graduating with a degree, but that doesn't mean I'm going to get, the top, banana spot in whatever corporation I want to work at. You need to start at the lowest possible rung, and you work your way up. And these kids have never been taught that.
Well, in some cases, it's not even the reality anymore. Like, when I went to work for OU, I took an entry-level position within the group that I was going to work for a reason. Because if I decided, and I get it, I'm old-fashioned, but I decided that if I was ever going to work my way up, I wanted to do it by doing every job they had before, as far as with the group that I was trying to move up into. So as a manager, I knew what the expectations were. I knew how to do the job, and I could help people if they needed it, etc. And there's so many, they don't do that anymore. Like one of the guys that recently took over as a manager there has a degree and worked as a manager at McDonald's for like 5 years. So they considered that enough experience to put him in charge of one of the areas that I just left from. And I'm like, that's just not going to work. And sure enough, they are having all kinds of problems, but I'm not gonna say anything else about it. Because I still have friends that work there, and I wonder, why are you talking trash? Because they earned it. But that's beside the point. But yeah, it's just weird because, and the other thing is, you got to remember, I think the last time I looked at the numbers, in 1957, 5% of the population in the United States had a degree of some kind. Now it's 37%. So the market has been saturated. And the other problem is when it became a thing where everybody knew that people were going to college, well now we'll just require that they have a degree because that shows. But here's the thing that nobody talks about. The reason a degree is important, the reason your diploma is important, it's not necessarily the things that you learned. They're hoping that you learned everything that you needed to learn along the way. But what it does is it proves to a potential employer that you can show up on time, that you can complete assigned tasks in a satisfactory manner, and do it without losing your shit, which this lady apparently can't do. Just saying.
Well, the thing is, I think, not to defend her or anything, but I'm pretty sure that she was also told, this young woman was also told, that if she completes all these things, she's going to, land that job. She was not told, like we were, that, hey, this is part of the path in order, this is just a stopgap. This is just to train you on what to expect. You're right. You showed up on time. You completed your tasks. You paid attention. You went above and beyond, depending on your grade point average, that kind of thing. But when I went to college, there was no understanding that once I graduated college, I was going to get a great job. That wasn't even part of the equation.
Well, and it's not supposed to be part of the equation. This is what happens when you start trading the word equality for equity and doing it in every platform and every space possible, because everyone assumes just because you got a college degree that you have an equity of outcome. You have an equality of access to build the outcome that you want, but you still have to be the one to build it. That's like me. I've been doing this stuff for 16 years. I have just now gotten to the point where I'm doing it more on a full-time basis, and I still write for places to try to make ends meet because I'm still trying to build this up to the point where I can do it on a full-time basis, and because I like dragging people like Joy Reid. So why wouldn't I do that? But anyway, but that's my point. It's like, and this is an argument that I've had before, because one of the things that I keep hearing thrown about is in the 1970s you could get a job at Safeway as a sacker, and afford to buy a house. I was alive in the 70s. I don't know what these people are talking about. I mean, granted, I was a kid in the 70s, but I didn't know any people that were sacking groceries that were going home, Al Bundy style. That's never really been a thing. That's one of the that's one of the things, like them saying that he as a shoe salesman was able to afford that house. Well, maybe, but did you see how often they ate? Just saying.
I never saw them eating.
I mean, they never had food. They were always broke. I mean, this whole idealized idea of I'm going to go to school, I'm going to get a degree, and it's just, and I hear this all the time, and it's why I sat down with my son when he was talking about at some point maybe wanting to go to college. Of course, he only wanted to go to college because he was convinced he was going to, kick ass in football and go to school for OU. That wound up not happening. But I told him, I said, look. If you want to go to college, what you do first is you do the VOTEC at your school, and if you need to do whatever you want to do, they'll actually let you keep going for at least a couple of years after you graduate. Get your certificates and the stuff that you want to do, which was diesel mechanics, and then once you can afford to put yourself through school, then you go back to school and you get your degree in your MBA or whatever, so that you can start your own business that you're wanting to start. Because in high school, when he figured out he wasn't going to be able to play football professionally, he was like, well, I think instead I'm just going to learn how to work on big trucks, and then eventually I want to get my own rig and be the ones to go, haul them into the shop and work on them. I said, if you want to do that, I can help you figure out how to do that. And we sat down and we talked about it for weeks. And I was like, look, and this is something that I have tried to tell everyone in my family, extended or otherwise, that is either coming up to high school age or has recently left high school age. Use the VOTEC system while it's there, because it will give you a skill that you can use to put yourself through school, so you're not finding yourself in a position where you have now hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt that you have to pay off unless Joe Biden happens to be in office and you happen to be one of the lucky kids that gets it waived, which is, interestingly enough, only really happening to the people that have a large enough dollar bottom line to be his donor class. That's the other part nobody's talking about with it.
Yeah, everybody's always that way.
But the thing about it is, if you need to go to college, if you feel like to do the job that you want to do, you have to get a degree, then that's fine. Nobody's telling you not to go to college. What we're telling you is have actual legitimate expectations. Do not expect to walk out of Harvard even with a 4-year degree and suddenly you're a senior partner in a law firm. That ain't gonna happen. That's not how any of that works. I don't care who you are. Everybody that I know that has ever made it anywhere in business, like say worked for like a Fortune 500 company, 95% of the people that I know that have made it even to mid-level management in a Fortune 500 company started out in the mailroom, no matter what their degree was. Because they took...
I can tell you, my father, he has 5 degrees, a master's too, and whatever. He was the mailroom guy. And he worked his way up.
That is just
every single job.
That has just always been a reality of being first a capitalist and second an American, is you take whatever job you can get and you use it to work your way up. That's why I keep getting so pissed off with all these. Now California has what, a $25 an hour minimum wage, which is pricing everybody out of being able to work. I mean, all they're doing is speeding up innovation, because all they're going to start. I've already seen restaurants with robot waiters. Now you've got kiosks almost everywhere. They're just going to start pricing everybody out of the workforce. But the thing about it is, they're doing it because, well, we're going to take care of you, and we're going to make sure that you're okay. But in reality, while they're doing that, what they're trying to do is force everybody onto a universal basic income, which is why they don't want everybody realizing there is such a thing as an entry-level position, and you can't make $100,000 a year flipping burgers. It's just not going to work that way. If you want to make good money, you have to figure out a way to work for it. And the best thing for you to do is to find something that you actually like to do every day and focus on that, even if it starts as a hobby, even if it's something that you do in your spare time. Because a lot of us, it's like I've told people here, Chad Alexander, who actually was and still is it still does run a political consultant company. He and I had very similar paths growing up. I just didn't realize that my love of social sciences and everything else could be put to work in the way that he did his. So by 1993, he was actually running a campaign for Senate at the national level in 1993. We're the same age. He'd been out of school for a year. Two, because I was out in a year. Mm-hmm. But it's just one of those things of find something that you love and figure out how you can do that, even if it's in your spare time, because and I think that's a big part of it. It's not just what you do to get your degree. It's not just the job that you have. It's what you do with the time that you're not devoting to that job. Because we have so many people now that all they do is they work, they come home, they plop down, they turn on the TV, they heat up their whatever they're going to eat for the night in the microwave, and then they just sit there and they veg out all day. And all night. I will admit, I have been guilty of that. But part of what makes you realize that you can do whatever you want to do is when you start doing fun things. Like I know you trash this thing that you do kind of tongue in cheek, but that rock painting thing, you could be selling. You could be selling those. People would buy those.
It's so funny because I will pick random people on a weekly basis, and I actually have like 6 that I need to send out. Possibly tomorrow, hopefully by Monday, because it's piling up. No pun intended. But and I've been offered, well, can I at least pay you for the supplies and the postage? And I'm like, no. The whole point of this is that it's a gift, that kind of thing. But I've actually had people ask me to paint them something and that they would pay me for it, and I don't like taking money for it because I'm not that good. But what I'll do is
you're better than you think.
I'll take like Sonic or Chick-fil-A in exchange.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know a lot of you in the chat have received rocks from Aggie, if not in the past, then recently, because I know I just did, and I can see Al's picture in there, I think, somewhere. Would somebody set this woman straight? Because her painting ability is a lot better than she thinks it is.
No. Y'all, some of the people that I was in the rock group with, they made me look like a fifth grader painting these things. Not even, maybe 5-year-old.
I don't buy it anyway. But yeah, no, I mean, and it's just so weird though, and the other thing that I think is making people just especially like the younger generation, I think part of the reason why they're so angry is they see the one-offs, like the 5-year-old kid who's like 10 now, who makes like $5 million a year reviewing Christmas presents on YouTube. And they're like, what the hell? And then you've got the TikTokers, and I swear to God, these people get paid to do this, and I really don't understand it. But they will sit there and wait for people to show up on their live streams on TikTok or whatever, and then people start doing the little thumbs ups and the hearts and everything else. And I guess somehow they like throw donuts and stuff up there. These people will be on this thing for like 20 minutes, just sitting there and like pretending they're eating the icons, and they get paid to do this. I mean, you've got, I mean, and the irony of this is, because this goes back to my childhood, my dad used to yell at me all the time for the amount of time that I spent playing video games and working on computers. My dad doesn't say anything anymore because I get paid to play on computers. But the other thing is this was during the days of, the big video game tournaments and everything else. I'm like, well, someday, Dad, if I get big enough, I can be one of those guys. He's like, yeah, you're never going to be one of those guys, kids. Face reality. And then, like, just, 10, 15 years later, now you've got, I guess longer than that, but now you've got kids that stream their video game playing online and get paid for it and have sponsors. I'm like, I was born too soon. It's just so weird because you've got all these weird little alternate economies popping up, but then you've also got the people that are still trying to do things the way we've always done them, and they're not getting the expectations they want either, so they're taking to social media and just ranting and raving. I mean, honestly, I guess the guy who offered, I think you said that she wound up taking that job eventually. I guess the guy that she was ranting about never saw the video, because I know I wouldn't have hired her. Like, nope, not hiring you. Moved on.
Goodness gracious. I just, to this day, I don't, it's almost as if, you remember the ad, Obamacare ad, Julia? Remember Julia?
Yes, I remember.
Okay, so from infancy, the government would take care of her until she died. And they thought that this was a great idea to push on to the people. And we were like, oh my God, we're slaves to the government and you're cool with it?
I mean,
how?
Technically, we already are, but that's
and some of us are still fighting it, in the trenches. But they thought that this was a great idea, and there was a lot of pushback, so they took it down. But it didn't go away; it just became more subtle. And this is what we're seeing now. These people who are graduating with these degrees and everything, they expect to be taken care of in a manner to which they have been accustomed. They've always been told that this is going to be happening, that, hey, get your degree. It's very important, blah, 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 blah. And they always sneer at the trades. It's a constant sneering of the trades. If it were not for Mike Rowe and his show Dirty Jobs, I don't think tradesmen would actually take any pride in their job. And it's scary because there was a time at the high school, back in my old home near San Antonio, the high school near us, that one did away with auto shop and woodworking and welding.
Yeah,
they shut down those programs.
Yeah, they started taking those out in my area. I think it was 90. Was when it happened for us.
These were shut down in 2003, and the reason for that the school district gave was that there was no money in it. There was no money to actually fund these things. And I'm like, but you're okay with founding several art collectives on campus. So the way that the art collectives worked were there's several different types, styles of artistic expression. You have your pop art, and you have your neoclassical, and you have all of those. So they were all different. So they had to be in different classes. So they couldn't have just one art class. So they had these art collectives. And that's what took place of those. And then, we were like, they can all take one art class, you just learn different types of art. No, this is what the liberal arts department, wanted to do with their art. So there were like 6 or 7 different art classes going on every for the freshmen, for the sophomores, for the juniors, and for the seniors, depending on your, I guess, ability to do art. I don't know. But so parents got really upset, and they decided to tackle this. And they actually said, if you don't bring it back, then we will fund it on our own, off campus. But we need our kids for those, instead of going to those classes, instead of taking, whatever elective, they have to be given permission to leave campus so they can take these classes that we will personally fund. Well, the school district said, oh my God, no, because that'll take money away from us. So they brought the classes back. When they brought the classes back, other school districts that had rescinded those classes started noticing that the recidivism rate just dropped. Bullying dropped. Just a bunch of good things started happening in the schools that carried those traits, because it was filling a need that these kids were looking for, and I have dear friends that I was, they kept saying, no, my kid has to have a college degree, And I knew their kids were like, I don't ever want to see the inside of a college, ever. And I try to talk to the parents, hey, I understand we come from the same place where our parents said a college degree is everything, because back then a college degree was everything. getting a college degree was a big deal when my parents were going to school. My mom was the first one in her entire family. She's one of 9 children to ever have a college degree. And it was a big deal. So that was instilled in us. And as parents, we instilled it on our kids, but the thing was, I was able to see the differences with trade schools, vocational teaching and all that. And when I was volunteering in the counselor's office, I would actually mentor kids to, if you do not want to go to college. And I'm not saying that the kids are too dumb for college. I'm saying that they just don't like school. The salutatorian for, I think it was like 2010, 2011, in that school, he didn't go to college. He went straight into the military, got, training or whatever, and is now owns a couple of welding businesses. So he never went to college, but he was a salutatorian. He doesn't like school. He felt school was not for him. He wanted to learn something that he could like, and so this is what I tried telling the kids. You need to, like Danielle said, find, work at something that you love, and it'll become a passion. It'll become something great. And that's what I was trying to do with those kids. And I was always being shot down by the counseling office, saying, no, we need to encourage them to go to college because, they need that degree, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, some of these kids can't even afford a semester in college, much less, they don't even want to be in college. They want to learn a trade.
How much you want to bet that some of their federal funding is tied to how many kids go into college?
I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised at all, because they were very hard and fast about dissuading kids from going into trade schools. And it freaked me out.
Which is just
because I
dumb.
remember, when I was in high school, we had how the counselor follows you when you're in high school.
Yeah.
So your freshman counselor follows you throughout that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had a wonderful counselor who asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up. That's how she always couched it like that. What do you want to do when you grow up? Because she always felt we were her children. So she always, asked it in that manner. And I one day I said, I don't know. I don't know if college is right for me. And she was very frank. Well, it's not for everybody. You have to want to go to college. Don't go because somebody's telling you that you need to go to college. You go because you want to go to college, not because you need to. And that taught me a very important lesson. You want to go to college. That you need to want it in order to actually enjoy that experience too. But most kids, they just take it for granted that you have to go to college in order to get a good job. And I'm like, no, that's not true.
And again, I think a lot of that has to do with, I bet if we started digging around into it, we would probably figure out that a certain amount of federal funding is for schools is tied to the number of kids that funnel into colleges. Because here's the thing, not to take this too political, but the other insidious thing about this is, not only is Joe Biden, wiping supposedly away debt for families, for kids that could actually afford to pay the bills if their families would help them pay them. And that's on the families. I don't care about that one way or the other. But you also have to face the fact that with the situation, what it is with school, they're also, most of the government was the one issuing a lot of those loans. So that's why he's making them go away, because it cleans up some outstanding debt on the back end, because what he's really trying to do is raise the government's credit rating again, because we've suffered 2 credit hits. So he's trying to clear some books to see if we can get some of that credit back, because that would eventually ease the inflation rates. Because one of the reasons why we're facing the inflation that we are is because our interest rate changes every time that credit rating drops. So that's the other part that nobody talks about. This is all basically a pay-to-play scheme. It has been for a very long time. It started becoming one once the government started getting involved and saying we're going to help kids go to school because it's too expensive. Do you realize now I think it's Harvard is almost $100,000 a year to go to school there?
Wow.
That's
incredible.
It's crazy. I remember back when I was a kid, it was like $50,000 or something like that to go to Harvard, and even that seemed outrageous back then. But now you've got, and it's funny that you decided to talk about this because I was flipping through channels and they were actually talking about this on the 5 today. Now you've got universities that nobody's heard of that are charging $50,000, $60,000, $75,000 a year to get degrees there, because they know that, one, the government's going to help the kids pay for the price, and two, there's a good chance that they're never going to have to worry about it one way or the other, because the government's going to wipe everything out on the back end. And that's the thing that the kids that are coming into college age now really need to worry about, because all Joe Biden is doing now is teaching the colleges that they can raise their prices again. It's a very insidious thing. And the other thing that kind of scares me about the mentality that we have today, where 37% of kids are getting college degrees and have no idea what to do with them because they can't immediately get the jobs they want. What happens when there are no people anymore that know how to work on plumbing?
Yeah. We would joke about this in college because I wasn't the only one with a useless degree graduating that year. There were a few of us, and we all talked about going into trades. As a matter of fact, I'm still interested. I've been looking for a place that will teach welding, because I used to weld, believe it or not. Another surprising fact about Aggie, I have welded before. I used to weld, and I had to study, the different types of metals and the different, there's, not all welding is the same. You have to know your metals. You have to know the matrix and the heat. The words are not coming, but some melt at lower temperatures than others, and that kind of stuff. And I took it upon myself to learn all of that on my own. And then I asked a friend who did welding if he could teach me, and he did. And I was, welding stuff in there, for fun and whatever. And he did some, he does serious welding. As a matter of fact, he actually right now is off in a rig somewhere in the Gulf of Mexico. But one of the things that he likes to do is he takes random metal and he makes art with it too. So he will weld things and everything. And so that was kind of fun for me, helping him with that kind of stuff. And so I've always wanted to learn how to weld. That was something that has always been. And before y'all say anything, no, I have never actually watched the movie Flashdance. I know she was a welder. That's all I know about it. But, that was not the incentive for that. The fire was the incentive for that. The acetylene torch. But, I still want to expand learning a trade. I would like to learn basic plumbing in case something happens, and I need to fix the sink or whatever. And my sister's planning on teaching me that too, because she took it upon herself to learn that stuff. So it's, what was a running joke when I was in college has actually become my life. I am learning trades in order to be able to fix things on my own, rather than have somebody come out of, and they would have to travel quite a bit, because I am so remote that getting anybody out here to work on anything for the house, it's, takes an act of Congress, for goodness sake. So, I do, the only thing electrician stuff, I can't. I still have that block. I cannot get past that. So But other than that, I'm willing to learn. And there are a lot of people our age that are rethinking, hey, I'm too young to retire, but they have to retire either from the military or from whatever job they had for like 20 years or whatever mandatory retirement clause they have in whatever job they have. And they don't want to stop working. And, that's one of the things, that William Shatner has been asked is, dude, you became an icon. Why do you still work? And he's like, because the day I stop working is the day I start dying. And he's right. My dad is the same way. He did not retire until he was 86. He is now 91. He's 92. So he just didn't want to. And so he works at home. He does his own thing at home. He helps one of the professors over at the university with stuff. So, but he keeps going. And there's a lot of people that really want to keep going. They don't want to fully retire, like to the point where they just sit at home doing nothing. And I'm kind of in that space too, where that's why I picked up the whole furniture thing. That's why I picked up the whole, I'm learning how to do cocktails, that kind of thing. That was a running joke around here because I would look up a recipe and I would tweak it or whatever. And then, Brad told me, hey, you should learn about it. You should go ahead and you should do something like that. And so I did the cocktail account a week before I got suspended.
Timing. It's funny how that works, right?
I know, right? So, continuing education is something that everybody can do on their own without the aid of, proper schooling or getting a degree or getting a certificate or anything like that. You can still learn everything. I mean, hell, there's a lot of universities that have their entire, thing online for you to take on your own. You just don't get the. You
basically audit the courses. It's all online. Yeah. You don't get a degree or anything, but you still learn the same thing the students learn. I mean, and that's like, and I've talked about this before. Everything that I do here through KLR Radio, I am self-taught, and I have sat with people who do it for a living that are like, did do it for a living. Now that I do it for a living, I need to stop saying that. But we're like professionally trained, and they were like, I can't believe you taught yourself how to do all this. I'm like, I've always been that way. Here's a little for all the kids that went to school like 90s, 2000s. I'm one of the people that caused them to start making your homework be weighted as part of your grade. I had, as I've gotten older, it's gotten worse, but I had a really good memory. So normally if I read something, I could retain it. It's still kind of the case now. It's just now that I've, become an insomniac and spent 20 years rarely sleeping, part of my brain just like, never mind, we quit. But I was one of those people where I could sit through a class, I could read the assignments, whatever, because I love to read, but I hated homework. I almost never did my homework. My parents were never home, so they never knew if I did my homework or not. I just wouldn't even turn it in, but I would get at least 95, 98 on my tests. So back then, because all they really cared about was the tests, I would still usually come out of every grade with like a B. The only time that didn't happen was fourth grade because my parents got divorced and I just didn't care about anything. I still, without even trying, technically passed, but the grade was so low that my mom made them keep me back anyway, because no kid of mine's going to fifth grade with a C, whatever. And plus, now I found out you're not doing your homework, so now she talked real tough. Nothing ever changed. But yeah, I graduated high school with a 2.8 because I was one of those kids that would do all the testing, come to class, pay attention, learn it, but I hated homework. So I had a 2.5 or 2.8 when I graduated high school. If I could go back and do it over again, I probably would because, that's the other thing is things nobody teaches you when you're a kid. Your grade point average does actually matter, and your credit score is going to matter someday, so don't fuck it up early.
This is very true. Very, very true. I graduated, I think, from high school. I was fifth in my class, I think. out of 715.
Nerd.
And totally, I was.
Come
There's no
on.
other explanation. I was a total nerd.
You
I
haven't
had the nerd table at lunchtime too. So
you have an anthropology degree. We already knew this.
I know. Yeah, I'm the uber nerd, and so but for me it was like because my parents expected me to have high grades. It was. It wasn't a big deal. And so going to college, it was completely different because the grading system was different from high school and the subject matter was completely different from anything that I learned in high school. And so my grades kind of took a small hit my freshman year. And my dad said, I expect better. I hope you understand that. And that's all that it took. Right?
Yeah.
So after that, everything was fine. But it was a readjustment for me going to college. This was the first time I was ever away from home. I knew 4 people in my high school that also went to the same college that I did, but none of them were living on campus. All chose to stay off campus. So I was pretty much alone. I did not know what to expect about dorm life. I didn't know what to expect about college or anything like that. But you would adjust. You would tell yourself, well, I guess I better learn. I guess I better figure this out. And I know kids that go to college and they're like constantly calling the parents about something in the apartment or something in the dorm room or this or that or the other thing. And I'm completely shocked. They're not adjusting. They want the problem solved by someone else. They're not willing to learn how to solve that problem. And this is why you get the TikTokers that are complaining about the 2 degrees, a certificate, and no job. It's ridiculous in my opinion.
Oh, I fear for our future. I really do. Well, I would say I did more so. And I think honestly part of it is it's always a thing of overcorrection, and it's always one way or the other. Like, boomers' parents were always busy and off doing their things. So then we as kids raised by boomers, we were really, well, I guess not really, because they had their moms at home. But then, dad was always busy. Mom was usually the one home handling everything. But then the whole, I can bring home the bacon and fry it up in the pan movement started. So we were really the first feral generation. Our parents were, and I'm not speaking for everybody in Gen X, but, we were latchkey kids for the most part.
Yes.
Our parents were almost never home. When they were home, usually by the time they were home, we had already done everything we needed to do. Hell, I spent most of my childhood taking care of my baby brother because my mom was always working or off doing other things. And I was basically the built-in babysitter from like age 10 because you're old enough now, you can take care of him. I'm going to work. What? What? Anyway, but it's just one of those things where we basically had to learn how to do everything on our own, and then a lot of us as parents overcorrected, and we started the whole helicopter parenting thing, where we want to be involved in all our kids' things, and we want to have them involved in all the activities and all of this and all of that, and then it got even worse because then it became, I know parents now whose kids are in teenage. And they are just, the parents are going to therapy. The parents are on medication because they've tried to make sure their kids got to do anything their kids wanted to do. So 7 days a week, they're off at cheer camp, they're off at this, they're off at that, and they have no time for themselves because they've poured everything into their child. And now the correction is going back the other way. I'm actually starting to see, and then, for the younger kids that are starting to have kids, then there was we're just gonna, the screen, the smartphones and everything became the babysitters like the TV was in our generation. But now it's worse because you didn't used to be able to take the TV with you everywhere you went. There was one there whenever you got where you were going, but you couldn't just have a screen. You couldn't stare at a screen almost constantly, and I think that's another. I think that's another reason why some of these college-age kids are having such a hard time with stuff. Because if you looked at some of the studies of what they say that constantly staring at the blue light created by these kind of screens does to your brain, because I have, it's kind of scary.
Yeah, it's funny because my kids, I was never a helicopter parent. I was like, no, I think I'm going to do it the way my parents did it. I'm good with that. I was a stay-at-home parent, but I was not a helicopter parent. As a matter of fact, if they had an interest in soccer, okay, go try it out. Let me know how you like it. I was not going to sign them up. They were going to do this on their own, whether they liked it or not. And my sister was very upset with me about something. One time, she had her 2 daughters in cheerleading. And one of them, she's like a human rubber band, so she wanted to do gymnastics as well. So my sister was like running ragged with her 2 girls in cheerleading and gymnastics. And then the other one, instead of gymnastics, wanted to do something else. So her schedule was like really whacked. And my oldest one decided, well, I want to try cheerleading. I said, well, okay, I'll take you and you can try it out. And she said, it's not for me. And my sister was like, no, you have to sign them up so that they can, have an activity to do. And I'm like, they have activities. They have their own little, worlds with their hobbies and whatnot. They have activities. They do stuff. And my sister was like, you are doing them a disservice by not putting them into some kind of extracurricular thing like karate or this or that or the other thing. And I'm like, if they're interested, they will let me know and they will work towards going into that class or going into that field or whatever. But I'm not going to push them into doing anything. And to this day, my kids are so grateful that they didn't have to deal with that crap.
See, your sister wouldn't let me.
Seriously, out of all of the nieces and nephews in our family, my kids are the only ones that are not on medication for anything.
See, your sister wouldn't have liked me because I'm such a smart ass. As soon as, because if I'd have been the one having that conversation with her, as soon as she said, you should put them in karate or something, I'd be like, wax on, wax off, and just turn around and walk off.
I would have totally done that. It worked for Ralph Macchio. Okay. He did it. Okay. But, that was something else, then, when they got into high school, they all developed the extracurricular activities that they wanted to, that they were interested in. And I was okay with fostering that and everything, but they were in charge of taking it to the level they wanted to. I was not going to push them into anything. I was not a band mom. I was not any of that thing at all.
And again, just rewinding to what you said a second ago, your kids are the only kids in your extended family that aren't on medication. So who did it right?
I'm serious. Well, my daughter has to take something because she's got stomach issues, but not mental medications, And they never.
I mean, if your granddad was from the CIA, you'd have stress issues too.
Yeah, well, that's true, but they don't know that. It's super secret. But anyway, yeah, my kids are really balanced, and it's really weird because out of my 3 kids, they all graduated with, 2 of them graduated in IB, International Baccalaureate Program, and the last one in AP. And the 2 IB kids decided, college is not for me. So they're off doing their own thing. And again, these are my kids. I'm tooting my own horn here, but they are brilliant. They're very smart. They're very educated. I cannot tell you the amount of times that I felt so lost at the dinner table when they were fighting over physics.
Whoa.
Physics equations and yelling back and forth. And I'm just with my head down going, I don't understand any of this. I mean, there was a time I used to, but I'm just like, no.
They out-nerded the nerd. That's funny.
I'm telling you, and when they come for the holidays, you would think that most of the stuff that we talk about is just like general, family stuff, whatever's going on with the house, whatever they're doing with their work, they start fighting about, differential equations and physics and existential stuff. And I'm like, who are you? How did you get to be like this? Me. They got to be like that because of me. This is all my fault. I'll own it. But, they still have that drive to learn new things. And, one of them is into electronics. She does all the electronics work for her friends, their cars, whatever. She works on jets. She works on helicopters, that kind of thing. Well, she decided, you know what? I think I'm going to go do something else. And so she switched careers and she's now doing something else. And I'm like, okay, did you get bored? He says, no, I just got curious. And that's the big thing. My kids have always been curious. They always take curiosity almost to an unhealthy level. And this is something that I have noticed with the current batch of graduates from college. They have absolutely no curiosity whatsoever. None. It has been killed out of them. It has been completely destroyed out of them. The curiosity is out. The creativity is gone completely. They have become automatons, and they behave like little robots. And that's where the expectation of, I have my 2 degrees. Where's my job?
Well, I honestly have been wondering for a while if the death of curiosity and the death of creativity doesn't have something to do with them having access to instant information. Because when we were kids, we didn't have that. If we wanted to know something, we had to go figure it out. So it made us curious about it. So we actually, and then not only did our curiosity drive us to go find the answer, then we got excited because we found the answer and we understood it. And then something else piqued our curiosity, so we went on a quest to go find that answer. They don't have to do that anymore. They get curious about something, they type it in on their phone, they have an answer in like 2 seconds. So I think that is another thing that is going to wind up being, if we survive this, I think when they look back on this time frame, they will have determined that the near downfall of man was constantly having a device in their hand. And I say that as somebody that makes a living using these devices. But even I have had to start telling myself, all right, you've been on this thing enough today. You need to go find something else to do. But then most of the time, I'm still either listening to a book or watching something on TV, which still involves devices. And it's just become such a thing. And I guess what concerns me about all of that is looking into some of the things that, like, not YouTube, well, not specifically because they're owned by Google, but some of the things that, like, Google has done, like the exposés that have come out about the different experiences that kids have on Google versus their parents, and the different experiences that you get based on your search parameters and everything else that you use them for. They start tailoring things towards your search suggestions, things like that. Like, just as an example, I had a friend who bought a new house recently, and she called me freaking out because she's like, oh my god, for the first time in my life I have bed bugs and I don't know what to do. So I'm like, well, I've only ever had them like once, and I don't really remember what we did other than hire an exterminator. Let me do some research. That was a month ago. I've cleared my browser history, cleared my cache multiple times. Half the time when we're writing, when I'm writing normally, I will go in and do preview, which kind of shows you what it looks like when you think you're close to done, or when you're checking for spacing errors, things like that. And so, because it's reading it like it's an article, the ads will pull up. Still to this day, every third time I click that button, I get a bedbug ad. Even though I looked for it for one afternoon 2 months ago. And it's just, with everything and every way that they're targeting things, it's kind of like with the whole Next story that we broke last night. Or Chad Felix Green broke it yesterday, and then we had him on last night. I think some of the reason these kids are as messed up as they are is because this stuff is being pushed on them everywhere it possibly can be pushed on them. because they've decided this is the new normal, or this is what whoever's doing all this stuff has decided this is how things need to be. So they're basically putting it in front of kids every way possible. That's just like one of my favorite shows to watch that I will probably never watch again because it literally just about made me sick the other day. Was Station 19. It was a spinoff from Grey's Anatomy. The ex and I used to watch it together, so for a while I hadn't watched it. So I was like, you know what, I'll go ahead and turn it back on. One of the first episodes I turned back on had a full-fledged dude-on-dude love scene where he's pinning him up against the wall for like 5 minutes. I'm like, I don't need to see this. I don't even necessarily want to see a heterosexual couple doing this shit unless I'm actually turning it on to see that. But I definitely don't want to see that. And it's just it's like, what? They're 3% of the population, maybe. But there's at least one on every show now. And now there's got to be at least two because they've got to be able to couple and do the hot sex scenes. No, thank you.
I don't want to see sex scenes. I don't. Heterosexual or homosexual. I'm good. I'm sorry. I mean, I can appreciate a love scene, but I don't need to see the sex scene. I have an imagination, and this is the problem.
Well, see, that's the point I was about to make. That they because they have made. I mean, even with TV now, that they are making things as explicit as they possibly can. They're killing everybody's imagination because
yes, they are.
It used to be, you would see them hug each other, and depending on whether it's a show from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the different types of kissing they could do would vary, and then it would fade to black, and you kind of filled in the rest of the stuff with your imagination. But we don't have to use our imagination anymore because they are painting us almost the full picture. And with some of the stuff that they're painting us, because, censors still get in the way on TV, thank God, I don't want to imagine it. That's like one of my all-time favorite shows within recent history was Designated Survivor. I absolutely love Kiefer Sutherland and pretty much everything that he does. I loved him in 24. I loved him in that role. That show got killed by ABC. It got picked up by Netflix. And all of a sudden, because there was no censorship anymore, the dude that was president of the United States was dropping F-bombs more often than I do. And if y'all listen to these shows, you know how often I drop F-bombs. And then, like, second episode in, there's like a full-on, like, not even any blankets, dude-on-dude love scene. And we all know how those go, so I'm not saying anything else. And I'm just like, really? Really? I mean, look, I understand that part of, as far as music and Hollywood and everything else, part of what they felt like made them relevant was the ability to push the envelope. I think we've pushed the envelope about as far as we can push it, especially now when every time you turn around there's a sex scandal in Hollywood, or there's a rapper that's on the run because they think he may have been involved in sex trafficking. I think we've pushed the envelope as far as we can push it. I think it's time we start pulling that bitch back together. I'm just saying.
Where to start? You're right. That envelope has been pushed so far that I don't know if we can come back from it. I was in a discussion with another relative of mine who happens to be very liberal and very much pro-choice, and I always tell her, it's like, you mean pro-abortion? And she's like, no, I'm. I said, so the fact that the choice came down back to the States, you have an issue with that? And she's like, well, because it's not a choice, they've taken it away. And I'm like, no, actually what happened was the court decided that, yeah, we had overstepped our bounds. This is an issue for the states to decide so that we, women, can vote how we want to, because we did not get to vote that time. And she was like, oh, you're just taking this all out of proportion. I'm like, no, I'm literally I'm reading right here. It's right here. I'm reading the decision. I'm telling you what's going on. And for her, she is still of the opinion that the overturning of Roe v. Wade was taking away women's rights, reproductive rights. So I asked her, what do you mean by reproductive rights? And so she tried to explain, and everything that came out, no matter how hard she tried, was basically abortion on demand. I said, so how is that reproducing? And she had nothing to say. She could not actually refute or answer my question, rather. She then went on to something else. So I asked her, so what do you mean? Isn't this what this means? And she was like, well, no, this is what we mean by that. We being the people that believe in, reproductive rights. And, when I explained to her, it's like, you understand, it's like, women still have that choice. And she says, no, not here. She lives in Texas too. Not here, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I look out your window and tell me what you see. Because I know where she lives, and she is not far from a Planned Parenthood. And so she was like, well, that's an exception. They're closing all of them. I said, no, they're not. If they were going to close, they would have been closed by now. She is still she's on her phone all the time. She's always, doing social media. She gets her news from TikTok and from influencers in that respect. And so she does not expand. She doesn't go out of that bubble to learn whether or not what people are telling her is correct. And so when she was met with some opposition from me, she came very, very close to calling me a Nazi. And I'm serious. It says, well, that's just like a not. And then she stopped. And I looked at her and I was like, you were about to call me the N-word, weren't you? And she's like, I would never call you that. Because in her
not that N-word.
Her little brain, there's only one N-word. I said, no, you were going to call me a Nazi. And she's like, well, you're being very fascist. I'm like, I'm literally telling you that the fascism was the actual Roe v. Wade, because that vote was taken away from you. It's now being given back to you. You have the freedom to vote now. How is that fascistic? And she could not answer. She could not. I mean, it's a lot. I like to poke the bear with her because, I can't.
Did you remind her that the founder of Planned Parenthood was actually a Nazi?
I have tried my best to try and educate her, but she is steadfast in her belief that she will never be conservative and she's always going to be a liberal. And I'm like, well, that's fine. You can choose that. That I'm just asking you to go find out information. Don't take somebody's word for it. Never take anybody. You can't even take my word for it. Go find it out for yourself.
Go do your own research. But yeah, this is again one of those times where Rick is too much of a smartass, because when she was like, well, I'm always going to be liberal and I'm always going to do this, I'd be like, well, you're free to be wrong for as long as you want to be wrong.
And I have teased her before about that. It's like, well, you can choose that, just like you can choose to be wrong. It's the freedom of choice, and she'll just roll her eyes at me and everything. But, it amazes me that when she was pushed to actually give me information to back up her theories with facts or whatever, she could not do it. She resorted to accusing me of acting in the manner of a Nazi, And I was like, this is why your argument fails, because you have no argument. You can't back it up. And B, you resort to actually accusing the other person of being something they're not. And she was like, still fascism. I'm like, don't give me fascism. That's not going to fly. I'm literally telling you, you have more freedom now that Roe v. Wade has been overturned, because now the power to vote rests in your hands, not in a federal, not in the SCOTUS, not with 9 people. And, so when I brought them up, she goes off on her little rant about 6 justices being, Christo-fascist. That's what she called them. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, that's the new buzzword, by the way. If you actually believe in the words in the Declaration of Independence, you're a Christo-fascist. Because
yeah, and it was like, and she and I have had numerous talks about the Electoral College, and she's very much into the whole world zeitgeist thing. And I'm like, and she's like, she has this shirt that says "One World, One Voice," right? So I asked her one time, it's like, whose voice? And she's like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, whose voice? One world, one voice. Whose voice do you want to hear? It's like, well, obviously our voice. I was like, yeah, but not everybody agrees with, even in your voice, not everybody agrees with each other. So whose voice are we talking about? And again, she's like, well, now you're just being, nitpicking. I'm like, no, your shirt literally reads "One World, One Voice." Whose voice do you want to hear? Whose voice will you follow? She could not give me an answer.
Because she didn't know the answer.
No, and I said, would you follow my voice? No. My thoughts, my actual, conservative leanings? She's like, well, no. It's like, well, then whose voice? And then when I finally pinned her down, she said that basically it has to be somebody that believes in, harmony and liberalism and taking care of people and all that stuff. And I said, okay, who's that? And I finally got her to admit it had to be a government. I finally got her to admit that the one voice has to be a government. So I said, okay, let's run with it. What government? And she was like, you're being so difficult. I was like, no, I'm trying to teach you to think. You already admit that it has to be a government. What government? What form of government? Well, obviously not capitalism. This, as she is literally shopping on her iPhone. I kid you not. She was shopping on her iPhone when we were having this conversation, but it cannot be capitalism.
I'd be like, hey, that phone that you're shopping on right now, capitalism brought you that phone.
I was just like, are you kidding me right now? But, and this is a young woman who did get a degree in education. She graduated. I'm very proud of her and everything. And refuses to, she is quite happy with her part-time job because that would leave her weekends free. And with minimal, responsibility. She was a part-time student teacher or part-time teacher, at a Montessori school. And I was like, you have a degree. Why aren't you a teacher? Then you're teaching. You have your certificate. Why aren't you teaching? And she was like, well, no, I just want my weekends free. And, I really don't want to deal with like grading too many papers or everything. But, she loves kids, though. I'll give her that. She is all over that when it comes to kids. But she didn't want the responsibility of teaching. So she prefers the part-time job. Well, now she's a mom. She only has the part-time job. She's living with her dad for now. But, I'm like, you're going to need more than just a part-time job because you're a single mom and you cannot rely on your dad. And she's like, yeah, but, I really like where I teach, and all that stuff and everything. So she's very set in that, but then complains that she has a degree and she doesn't make a lot of money. And I'm like, you have the opportunities. You have the opportunities to expand. You have a really good system in place of support because she has a lot of relatives that live in the same area that could help with the baby. All she does is she complains. I have a degree and all I do, I just barely make enough money to, pay the bills and take care of the baby. And so she is learning the hard way about growing up. And this is a woman in her 30s, mind you. I'm not talking about a 21-year-old. I'm talking about, she's going to be 35 this year. So it's not like she is, you know, a noob coming out of high school or coming right out of college, you know. She's been out in the world, the real world, for a while, but she's still under that mentality. And that is a result of my sister being a helicopter parent, and my sister saying, yeah, you can do it. Yeah, here's a participation trophy for you, this, that, the other thing. And this is a result. I mean, I see it with nieces all the time, and it drives me crazy. Because I wasn't a helicopter parent. I was derided for not being a helicopter parent. And yet my kids are the ones that are successful. Because I left them alone. I said, you know what? Be feral. Here's a key to the front door. I'm in the back doing something to a piece of furniture. I'm not going to have the time to go pick you up. Find a ride. Seriously. I was like low-key mom the entire time they were in high school. I just was not going. I was like my parents. I wasn't, you know, and I was afraid. I started off being a helicopter parent, and then I caught myself when they were very young. I said, no, I can't. I mean, we were playing Sorry, and I was about to tell him, well, let's be nice, and let's not punish them by sending them back home. And I said, oh, no, what am I doing? What am I doing? And I told him the object of Sorry, and to this day we play Sorry all the time because of that. Is to make sure, you know, you get that guy, you put him back home, you know, because you want to win, blah, 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 and all this stuff. Monopoly is cutthroat here. Monopoly is just, I have to put the knives away.
Okay, 2 quick hits, and this is only because you just brought this up. Have you seen the new Sorry game happening in New York City?
No.
Yeah, there's guys walking up to women saying sorry, and when they look up, they punch them in the face.
Oh my gosh, you're kidding.
Nope.
Horrifying.
Welcome to the jungle, bitches.
Oh my God.
One other quick hit on the way out, because I didn't want to talk about it before, because it actually does make me sad. Rest in peace, Louis Gossett Jr.
I know. Chappie. I mean, he had such a great career. And it's funny because G had tweeted it out, and somebody mentioned that he never had $1 million payout for any film, you know, in his entire career. But he was a gentleman he was all about the work, you know, for him. He was very modest. He, you know, he didn't need the big $3, $5, $10 million payouts for film or anything like that. But he suffered also, and I brought this up for the Oscar, what I call the Oscar curse, and it has happened to several Oscar winners. He was one. He won for Best Supporting Actor, and when he won that, the roles just kind of dried up, or he had very mediocre roles after that. And it took him a while to actually rise again and be, you know, noticed as a really good character actor getting good roles. It happened to Ben Kingsley after Gandhi. It happened to F. Murray Abraham after Amadeus. It happened to Jeffrey Rush after Shine. It happened to Adrian Brody. It happened to a lot of people, and they had to, you know, because once you get that Oscar, a lot of people are like, oh, you're an Oscar winner, you're going to be demanding a lot of money. No, I'm not going to ask you to be in my movie. You know, that kind of thing. And that was really endemic in the 80s and 90s that I noticed. And for him, it did happen in the 80s. And so his career kind of went off the tracks for a bit before it picked up again. So, but, you know, he was such a solid actor. Such a great actor in everything that he did. Even if it was just a guest spot in a TV show, he always owned it. It was awesome. He's going to be missed. And we're losing all of these great character actors, and they're not being replaced. I will say that they're not being replaced. I cannot think of any young character actors anymore. Can you?
Yeah. Sorry, I think I was having a connection issue there for a second.
That's all right. We've talked a lot.
But yeah, I don't know, that actually that would hurt. I mean, granted, it wasn't like Masterpiece Theater or anything, but I grew up watching Iron Eagle. I still have that movie. Actually,
I do too. I have it on VHS and DVD.
I never did. I wasn't able to do that, but I did find that Amazon had it for like $2 a while ago, so I bought a digital copy of it. I will probably be watching that tonight. But yeah, it was actually the Cobra Kai that kind of made me remember how much I enjoyed that movie as a kid, because on one of the opening scenes, Johnny is watching that movie, and I was like, oh my god, that's just kind of weird. But yeah, speaking of which, Daniel LaRusso was actually the villain in the first Karate Kid movie. That's a hill I'm willing to die on. Just saying. Anyway, but yeah, we have hit 9 o'clock, and I'm trying to get at least 2 more stories done, which will probably mean I'll be working till at least 11, so we should probably start wrapping up anyway. I'm still slow. It takes me like an hour to write one story.
That's okay. So, take a deep breath. Tell us where we can find you, Rick.
Oh, Jesus, do I have to? Anyway, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you do.
All right, so, well, there was supposed to be a juxtaposition tomorrow night, but Mr. Ordnance J. Packard is making a trip into Nevada, which is harshing my mellow, and also, your job is not enhancing my calm, John Spartan. Anyway, so I think, because I don't really want to work on Easter, I think I'm going to do Rails tomorrow, because I don't really want to do anything on Sunday, because I'm going to be running around like a crazy person for Sunday. So I will probably I will probably move Rails to Sunday or to Saturday and take Sunday off. I thought about just taking it off again, but I already couldn't do it last weekend because of the weather. So I'm like, yeah, I really need to do another one. So I think we're moving it to Saturday night. I will probably, I know Jeff has some stuff planned for tomorrow, so I'm going to see what his schedule's like, and then probably just do it maybe I either at the regular time I usually do it now, or maybe even a little bit earlier if I can pull it off. So that way, if I need to, I can still finish some writing. But you can find me on Twitchy most days now. Not gonna lie, I kind of fell down a little depression hole in February, so it was kind of hard for me to do all the things I was trying to do. So I focused mainly on the radio stuff, because that's easier to do than trying to scout headlines and everything else. But I will be contributing there more regularly, because I put myself in a bit of a financial hole this month because I didn't write as much as I should have. So I usually have pretty good commission checks coming in on top of everything else that I make. And this last month I didn't really get one. So I'm like, lesson learned. I got really used to working for OU, because then as long as I had time to cover it and I called in, I still got paid. So I got really used to still having the same size paycheck whether I was working or not, because I was able to do that for like 10 years. Yeah, no, that's not a thing anymore. So I got to remember that I actually do have to hustle to make the kind of money that I need to be able to pay all my bills. So yeah, you can find me on Twitchy. Probably having at least maybe 2, hopefully 3 more pieces coming out tonight, and then a few coming out tomorrow, because I'm going to try not to write for them on Sunday either. You can find me on the Loftus Party as an occasional contributor there. Misfits Politics as an occasional contributor there. Tuesday, I'll be back doing the Rick Robinson Show. That's Tuesday through Friday between the hours of 3 and 5. Wednesday Eastern. Wednesday, I do whatever with Stacy. Then I produce for G on the Conservative Curmudgeon. Then I produce for the Ladies of the Red Wine. Then usually Mr. John Spartan, Orty, and I do a Rick and Orty to close out the night, but they keep making him work for a living. It's like they figured out that he's Amish or something. Anyway, and then I'll be back doing Jen and Rick, 10 p.m. Eastern, and then probably right around here back with you on Friday. Well, actually, I guess you're off next Friday, so I need to figure out what
I'm off next Friday.
I need to figure out what I'm doing with that one, whether I'm putting up a replay or trying to put together a dude, bro. But at least now I have a week to figure it out, because I was panicking last night, which is why I asked. I was like, holy crap, is she supposed to be off tomorrow? Because I haven't checked with anybody yet. You're like, no, that's next week. I was like, yay. All right, cool. I didn't completely screw up. And then When I'm not doing all that stuff, you can find me as the executive producer of the Office Party podcast, which usually drops on Tuesdays at around 9 in the morning. And you can also keep up with me on most social media platforms at RowdyRick73. Okay, that's it. I think I covered all the bases, and if not, I don't really care. So where can folks find you and some of your magnificence? I'm stealing some of Brad's
Well, well, you can find me at Aggie Rican and at Aggie the Barkeep over on X. You can find me Tuesday nights, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, doing the Cocktail Lounge with the aforementioned ever suave Brad Slager. You can find me Friday nights doing He Said, She Said, also at 8:30 p.m. Eastern with You of Late. So that has been a lot of fun. Last Wednesday of every month, you can find me here at 8 p.m. Eastern with the guys, G, Forty, Rick, and Andrew, as we welcome the Babe of the Month on Toxic Masculinity. And Jeff and I have our book podcast, second Monday of every month, also at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. But this one is going to be the third because the second Monday of this month, of this coming month, April, is the eclipse, and I will not be around. So thanks for joining us, and we hope you guys have a great evening and sleep well tonight whenever you get there.
All right, folks, that's it. We're done. And just in case any of my new followers are listening, because for some reason I've had an uptick the last few days, I will probably piss you off eventually, and it's been nice knowing you when that happens. Just saying. Bye, everybody.